right.
Welcome everyone to Loudoun Agile Network. We are so honored to have you all here. And today's session is by Ron Lichty. The topic for today's session is, do managers have a place in Agile and rethinking leadership roles? It's a really great topic, right, in this current world. So a little bit about Ron. Ron has been managing software development for the past 35 years, and we are very honored to have him as a speaker. And Ron has originally started as a programmer. He has several patents and wrote 2 popular programming books before being hired into the first management role by Apple Computer, which nurtured his managerial growth in both development and product management. So Ron has previously worked in Fujitsu, Squab, Razer, Fish, Stanford, and dozens of startups of all sizes. So a lot of experience that we are gaining from today's session from Ron. Amazing. So the past 13 years, Ron has been principal and owner of Ron Lichty Consulting, and he trains teams and executives in agile coaching, business and product and engineering leaders. He is on occasionally takes on interim VP engineering roles and all the great stuff. So in his continuous search of best practices, Ron co-authored the periodic study of product teams' performance, and also managing the unmanageable rules, tools, and insights for managing software, people, and teams. So a lot of great insights from Ron that we're gonna hear from. And he lives in San Francisco, so he's joining us from West Coast, guys. So I know it's 3 or 4:15 now, but yeah, thanks Ron for joining. Without further delay, I will have Ron take over. Thank you.
Thank you, Lakshmi.
Okay, so I'm going to share some slides, and here's our topic for the day. And my focus as a manager has been on making software development hum. My focus as a consultant has been on making software development hum. And so that's what we're going to work on. That's what we're going to talk about today. So Toby, so part of the reason we were a little bit late was we were trying to put together a poll. So Toby, can you bring up the first poll?
Absolutely.
To see who we all are. And let's see whether this actually works or not. Oh, look at that. So figure out which one of those you are. And
did it come up? I'm sorry, I'm new to polls, and I apologize.
It came up for me. Did it come up for Mina? Jim, can you shake your head yes if you've got it? Yes. Okay, good.
Yeah, I can see it too. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay.
And we have answers coming in.
Do you want me to share the screen to show the results?
And just answer the questions in question 1 for now. They're all together in the same poll here. So we'll bring this back up for question 2 and question 3 later.
Ron, do you want me to share the screen to show the results of the poll, or wait till?
Yes. And we've got, so far there's 7 people who've checked in.
Okay, so we'll wait.
And I think the host and co-host can answer, although Lakshmi, were you able to answer?
I'm okay. I'm
yeah. So we may have everyone in. So if you can share that. So we've got 4 people who manage software developers directly. We have 2 Scrum Masters or Agile coaches, 3 Scrum Masters or
I can just read it out because I don't want to take away from your screen. So we have 50%
software
people. Yeah, 50% people, which is 4 out of 8. It says I manage software developers directly. And then 3 out of 8 is Scrum Master or coach, and 1 out of 8 is software developer. So those are your answers.
Okay, great. So let me stop sharing. And I want to start with a little bit of empathy for managers. So for those of you who aren't managers, empathy for the people who are managers, because this is what happens when Agile happens when we transform our organizations to Agile is that the manager's there in the center and that you are here by a circle. And their job changes, their teams change, their peers and partners change, their leadership roles and relationships change, and the organizations typically change, and that's a challenge. So my consulting practice is focused on making software development hum. I ran into Agile for the first time in 1999. So a little bit about my background. I ran into Agile for the first time in 1999 in the form of extreme programming. I was at Charles Schwab, and we measured downtime in millions of dollars per minute. And one of the I was leading an initiative across all of Schwab, so across 2,400 developers, to move all of our technology to a single technology, a single platform. And one of the VPs I was supporting, I was still a director of engineering. One of the VPs I was supporting was doing something called extreme programming. And I thought, millions of dollars per minute in downtime, and we're doing something called extreme something. I think we better figure this out. It turned out extreme programming had been created by a guy I knew. I had worked with him briefly at Apple, Kent Beck, and we brought him down from Oregon to do a workshop on extreme programming and to do a little bit of consulting with those teams that were using extreme programming. And I became intrigued with Agile. And then 3 years later, when I found another little area of Schwab that was embracing Scrum, I actually became enamored with Agile when he said, it's letting my developers go heads down for 2 weeks at a time and not be interrupted. And I thought, whoa, that's pretty amazing. By 2009, I was actually training other people's teams. I was still leading and managing teams as a VP of engineering by that time, but I was training other people's teams in Agile. And one of the characteristics of training is something that leads to managers leads to our needing to have a little bit more, even more empathy for managers, because when we talk about training, this is typically how we draw it in training. There are stakeholders, there's a business owner, there's a product owner, there's a Scrum Master, there's a Scrum team, if we're talking about Scrum, and there's no manager in that picture. And that leaves managers sort of in the cold. When my co-author and I, Mickey Mantle and I, spent 8 years writing Managing the Unmanageable, the first edition of Managing the Unmanageable, we spent from 2004 to 2012 writing the first edition. And it was a period during which we were both Agilists already, but Agile had not taken over the software world yet. There was still a majority of teams using pre-Agile approaches, who were using waterfall or RUP or spiral or some other approach other than Agile. And it led us in Managing the Unmanageable to realize that we needed to be agnostic. We needed to write both for pre-Agilists and for Agilists. So we would say, well, if you're using a traditional approach, here's what you need to do. If you're using an Agile approach, here's what you need to do. And we thought we had it handled, because we actually did that throughout all 9 chapters of Managing the Unmanageable. And then we found in the earliest readers, those readers who were in Agile organizations kept asking us, my team has gone Agile, and what's my role now? How has my role changed? Do I even have a role? And it led us to propose a second edition to Addison Wesley, our publisher, who went for it, and we added that chapter. That chapter was 40 more pages specific to how managers need to be in Agile organizations, what the role of managers are in Agile organizations, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So there is still a manager role. So I want to jump to Google for a moment. Google is not known for being an agile organization, but if you look at how it does software, it does it in a very agile way, even though it doesn't use Scrum, it doesn't use Kanban, it doesn't use extreme programming, although there are pockets of all three of those in Google. Nonetheless, it tends to be fairly agile in the way it develops software. Google thought early on, we'll just get rid of all our managers. We don't need managers. And they sort of ran an uncontrolled experiment in 2002, and it didn't go very well. And they brought back managers. And then 6 years later, they were still asking the question, well, you know, what's the point? And it led to Project Oxygen. So Google, just like the rest of us, they have a ton of organizational issues, but unlike the rest of us, they have a ton of money, and they spend that money studying themselves. And one of the studies they did was a study called Project Oxygen in 2008 to ask, you know, what's the value of managers? They set out to prove what a bunch of people at Google suspected was that managers don't matter. What they found very quickly, they discovered quite the opposite, that managers matter a lot. Here's a quote from Project Oxygen. What employees valued most were even-keeled bosses who made time for one-on-one meetings, who helped people puzzle through problems by asking questions, not dictating answers, and who took an interest in employees' lives and careers. So that's what employees valued most. Now, what they also found was that high-scoring managers correlated with less turnover in their teams. They had less turnover on their teams than the low-scoring managers did. And retention was related more strongly to manager quality than to seniority of the managers, to the performance, to tenure, to promotions. It showed a tight connection between managers' quality and workers' happiness. And for any of you who have any question, I want to contend that happy teams are productive teams. A guy named Rich Sheridan wrote a book called Joy, Inc., which I recommend to all of you. Joy, Inc. is Rich's story, so it's an easy to read because it's a story. Rich's story of creating a brand new consulting organization in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which was founded around the notion of bringing joy back into software development. And they totally focused around being an agile organization and having agile teams. And he talks to his clients and customers in terms of hey, you know, we're a joyful organization. And some of his customers question that. Some of his customers ask the question, well, why do I care? And Rich shared with me, I'm not sure he shared it broadly, but he shared with me that he occasionally will ask those customers, so I've got two teams. One's a very happy team, and one's it's not that happy. Which team do you want working on your stuff? And he said, you know, darndest thing, they always pick the happy team. Happy teams are productive, and everyone, at least unconsciously or subconsciously, knows that. So let's talk about managers and Agile. So some of the earliest Agilists also said that managers are critical to Agile. So Mike Cohn, in Succeeding with Agile, Mike is thought to be the very first Scrum trainer back in the early 1990s. Said a common misconception is that because of this reliance on self-organizing teams, there's little or no role for leaders of Agile teams. Nothing could be further from the truth. Here are Esther Derby and Diana Larson, also two of the earliest Agilists, both of whom are in these quotes sharing the value of managers to Agile teams. Give you a second to read those. What happens though, excuse me, I'm down with a cold, so my my apologies for an occasional cough or sneeze. What's fundamental is that management roles change in Agile. And it changes because Agile done well represents a shift from managers in charge to teams in charge. And I want to nuance that a little bit and just notice that Agile expects everyone to be a leader, not just managers, not just team leads, but everyone. Everyone, even including the intern out of college who's here for the summer, needs to be a leader on an Agile team. So now I want to do a poll number 2. Toby, can you bring up that polling again? And we'll look at the second question. How many of you have Agile managers? And those of you who are managers, you can either characterize yourself or you can characterize your manager.
I do have it open, Ron.
It hasn't come up here.
I don't know what to do.
Everybody else got it? Do other people have it?
Okay, I just relaunched Paul. But if I relaunch, I'm going to lose the earlier one. Is that okay?
Sure.
All right. Okay, so I relaunched.
Okay, good.
Did you get it?
Down to question number 2. Is your manager an Agile manager? And you have my manager is maybe sort of Agile. There was actually it was intended to be a 4th choice there of excellent, but
I like choice number 1. Yes.
My manager talks Agile, but nope, not actually Agile, or my manager doesn't even talk Agile. And don't answer question 3 yet.
Yes.
Just question 2. Is your manager an Agile manager? So we have 5 answers of my manager is maybe sort of.
And it's trending. Number 1 is trending. How about that?
There is a question in the chat, but we can take it later, or now is a good time.
We're going to take it towards the end, all the questions towards the end, if that's okay. Ron, is that how you want to handle it? I think we're going in a flow, right?
I'm fine with taking questions as we go along if they're sort of where we are.
Okay. Maybe right after this poll, but however you wish. We are here to support you, Ron. So we got 6 out of 6 on the first one. My manager is maybe sort of Agile. 0 votes on my manager talks Agile, but nope, not actually Agile. And 0 on my manager doesn't even talk Agile.
All right,
that's good.
That's terrific. It would be good to differentiate between maybe sorta and absolutely, but well, as we go along, I'd be curious if any of you change your opinion about that. So, but let's continue. And I looked at the question in the chat. Let's hold that one. So I began my career as a programmer, and I just want to note that I spent 7 years as a programmer, and I as Lakshmi told you, I have a couple of patents. I did microcontroller embedded device programming. I wrote compiler code generators. I wrote early desktop apps. Wait, not laptops yet. I wrote early desktop apps. I thought I had the best job in the whole world, but after 7 years, I was curious about managing, and Apple Computer made me an offer to come to Scrum, be a manager. And this is sort of, if you follow that arc from Apple, that's the course of things. I was promoted to be a director of engineering at Berkeley Systems and a VP of engineering at Charles Schwab. And that sort of runs through 13 years ago when I pivoted to consulting. And I focused pretty much through that entire time and through consulting on untangling knots in development and product teams, and advising, and more recently in advising business and engineering leaders. And part of what I'm advising them on is the management rules change in Agile. So I want to point out 4 different ways that management roles change as a result of Agile's introduction. The first one is that familiar management roles, there are familiar management roles that teams still need. And I'll talk about a couple of those. But I'm going to postpone that to after we talk about roles and styles that are inappropriate and are deprecated, and roles that change sometimes dramatically, in addition to roles that are new with Agile. So when Mickey and I wrote the first edition of the book, it had 9 chapters, and these are the 9 topics that we addressed. And when we looked to create that 10th chapter of, what's my role in Agile? How's that different? I began to look down at these and realize that the one that really changed substantially was managing successful software delivery, because teams themselves manage successful software delivery, the tongue twister, in Agile. I listed in our book, we list manager roles in Agile, and there's some 50 plus responsibilities there. Ganged by sort of categories of people management and technical management and project team support and responsibilities within your team or organization, and then responsibilities to the larger organization. And we ask people to look at those and rank them based on how much you think they change. And you can see that there's that left grid there is the things on the left change only a little bit, and the things on the right change a lot, change dramatically. And so I want to get into just a few of those over the next few minutes: creating an Agile culture, supporting Agile values, empowering self-organization and excellence, scaling Scrum, removing impediments, counseling, coaching and mentoring, and hiring and firing. Those last 2 are traditional roles. The first 3 or 4 are ones that are pretty much brand new or just a really dramatic shift from what managers did before. And the 5th one has an interesting connotation. So let's talk about first creating an Agile culture. And I want to talk about Agile culture and management theory. And I don't want to talk about Taylorism. Probably all of you are familiar with the word Taylorism and what that connotes, and it comes from the 1800s. And it was really used in manufacturing. But I want to talk about the management theory that came along from at least these 3 folks, Abraham Maslow and Frederick Herzberg and Douglas McGregor, in the 1950s. And my co-author dug these out and said, we should spend at least a couple of pages on each of these the theories from each of these folks, because they're really interesting. And what's really interesting is that they correlate such that Agile culture and 1950s management theory are very closely aligned. So let's go to Douglas McGregor. Douglas McGregor in the 1950s he posited these 2 theories, Theory X and Theory Y of management. Theory X is on the left, and you can see there's management pushing down on the organization, pushing down on the staff. And that's pretty much Taylorism. And then you look at Theory Y, and McGregor said, we live in an age of knowledge management now, where the role of management is not to push down. The role of management is to uplift our teams, to support our teams. And you may have difficulty reading the words in the Theory Y box there, but let me pull out a few of them: enabling, empowering, developmental, continuous improvement. Those are all words that Agile applies to servant leadership. The role of leaders in Agile is as servant leaders, and they get described with using all of those words. Agile culture and McGregor's management theory certainly align really highly. Theory Y align very highly. We in the center section of our book is roughly 300 rules of thumb and nuggets of wisdom, and I want to share a few of those around managers in Agile. here's one from Alan Shalloway, who was another one of those early Agilists, who said, lean Agile management is the art of leading people, not managing them. Creating the correct environment, focusing them on the right things, trusting them to do their work. In Lean Agile, the manager has two primary responsibilities: setting the outcomes or goals expected of the team and assisting the doers in creating a better process to get their jobs done. I led a workshop during Agile Open California in 2013, in which one of our participants said this beautifully. He said, management sets the boundaries of what needs to be done and says to the team, I trust you to figure out how to get it done. And here's another rule of thumb. Who knows? So type into chat, who knows who said this? Trust but verify. Anybody call out whose quote that is? IRS. Interesting.
That was me, sorry.
The person, this is John Lincoln. That's good. It was a president. It was this president, Ronald Reagan, was noted for saying for his management theory being trust but verify. But it turns out that Reagan got this from someone else. And given no one guessed Reagan, I'm going to guess you're never going to guess who Reagan got this from. He got it from Vladimir Lenin. This is actually a Russian proverb, trust but verify. But it is incredibly useful because trust but verify is the imperative not to micromanage. It sort of is the essence of delegation. It's talking about setting expected outcomes for teams, as Shalloway was talking about. And here's Alan Lefkoff, who, when I met him, was the CEO of 𝘀𝗵𝗹𝗳, and who told me, I inspect what I expect. He told me later that he had learned that from Lou Gerstner, who they were both once McKinsey consultants. Lou Gerstner ended up being the CEO of a much larger company than 𝘀𝗵𝗹𝗳, IBM. Programming is fundamentally a team sport, and I think this is really important to Agile culture. So I want to bring up that third poll, Toby, if you would. In your organization, are your teams truly teams, or
Yes,
are they a bunch of folks who report to the same stand-up?
Is this showing, or do I need to run anything?
You have to do it again. You have to relaunch it, I think.
So I have to end poll, and give me a second. And I apologize, I'm new to this, but we'll do it. Relaunch poll. Okay. Let me know if you see it, please.
There we go. And if you scroll down to the third question, answer that question. In your organization, are your teams truly teams, or are they a bunch of folks who report to the same stand-up?
So truly teams is trending. We have 4 out of 5. 5 out of 6. No? Yeah, and a bunch of folks who report to the same stand-up is 1 out of 6. All right, we lucked out. We got a bunch of good Agilists on our on our show today, which is excellent.
Good for all of you. So one of the characteristics of teams is that it is a very high level of communication among everyone, and managers need to be creating a culture of communication. And I don't think this is absolutely not a responsibility pre-Agile for programming managers. Should have been, in my opinion, because in my opinion, programming is a team sport regardless of what approach you're using. But managers need to create a culture of communication pretty much at every level, in which everyone communicates with everyone else, up, down, within, and across. With the caveat that Kimberly Wiefling shared with me, that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, use them in this ratio. This doesn't, so it is not about managers spending all their time talking to their teams. We fundamentally need a culture of communication to be a culture of listening and hearing and empathizing in addition to communicating. And if we truly honor Kimberly's, I should note that, well, Kimberly shared this with me, and it's her wording. I thought, I wonder what the real source of that is. And I started Googling it and found a version of this in Greek from over 2 millennia ago. So it's been thought that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and we should use them in this ratio for a very long time. So if we have a culture of listening and hearing and empathizing, provided we have that culture, then I don't believe we can over communicate in product development, in software development. Now, I think it may be possible for salespeople to over communicate. It may be possible for marketing people to over communicate, but I don't think in product organizations, I think it's pretty unlikely that we're going to over communicate. And with virtual teams and remote teams, which virtually all of us have some aspect of these days, there's never enough communication, and we really have to commit to communication and to communicate. And managers have a responsibility to figure out how to make that happen. Ted Young, who was a development manager, said of remote teams long before the pandemic, Ted said, the more distance between teammates, the more you have to formalize communication and make it explicit. We talk a ton about establishing successful programming culture in our book. We've got a whole chapter devoted to it. And so I've really only covered a pittance of it. So if you want to get deeper, there's this, but I'm going to hit on it a little bit more as we go into a couple more of those original bullets, as we go into supporting Agile values. Because it's Agile values that make us Agile. And stick with me for a moment. So all of you, I hope, all of you have read the Agile Manifesto. We've got 4 values there in the Agile Manifesto. We've got a set of 12 principles, and when I do training, and I last year looked back on the previous 12 years of doing trainings and realized and actually counted them up and realized I have delivered almost 200 Agile trainings. One of the things that I have told to every single training that I've given has been, post the Agile Manifesto, post it, all of you, each of you, post the Agile Manifesto and revisit it, and ask the question: Are we actually being Agile? The being Agile comes from the values and the principles. The Agile principles begin, and the one place I actually have a contention with the Agile principles is this one. It says our highest priority is to satisfy the customer. And I think that understates it. I think our highest priority is to delight our customers. And it's literally the only thing in the Agile Manifesto that I take issue with. So how do we do that? How do we delight customers? Is it with Agile practices? So some number of years ago, there were a ton of debates online about, well, if we don't actually have Agile values and principles, if we actually don't live the values, the practices are worthless. And I thought, well, geez, is that true? And it led me to list some of the practices that came to mind, immediately to mind. So, if we look at these 8, every one of them, in my mind, delivers value. If we have a daily stand-up, and daily stand-ups are not status meetings, They are about planning and replanning, and very quickly, but the team together, if software development's a team sport, maybe we ought to talk to each other at least once a day. We plan daily, there's real value to that. If we plan our iterations, there's value to thinking through what we want to accomplish over the next week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. If we plan publicly, there's value to our company knowing what it is that we're intending to accomplish. If we together define what it means to be done with every single story, not acceptance criteria, which are unique to each story, but definition of done, which applies to every story we do, every piece of work that we do. If we together as developers and testers and product managers, if we define that together, there's value to that. If we order work based on customer value, if we create a backlog, instead of handing me 100 pages of product requirements document, a PRD, instead we order all of the stories, all of the epics and stories, but top of the backlog has to be stories, and they're ordered by customer value. Wow, what an advance that is. If we deliver frequently, even if it's only internally, if we deliver frequently, if we have working software that we can visibly show progress frequently, huge value. If we share how we're doing, value. We reflect on how to do better, value. I want to talk about 2 of these, and Lakshmi noted that I'm the co-author of the study of product team performance. The study of product team performance, we did, I think we've done 7 of them over the past decade and a half or so. And we've surveyed, in each of them, we survey thousands of people on product teams all over the world. And we ask initially, characterize your team. Is it a high performance team or a low performance team or something in between? And then we ask about practices, about a few practices each time. And then a data science member of our team looks at, is there a correlation between any of these practices we asked about and the people who say that our team is a high performance team, or our team is a low performance team for that matter. And we found some agile practices specifically. We found that stand-ups matter, that stand-ups that are held daily matter most highly correlate with and specifically effective stand-ups that are held daily most highly correlate with the highest performance teams. In our 2015 study, in our 2016 study, we asked about definitions of done. And the team gets together. So now first, we asked, who creates your definition of done? And what we found that teams that together create their definition of done, that's not handed to them by management, but the team gets together and says, this is what it needs to be done. And they actually do it, but it's created by the team, correlates with the highest performance teams. Agile practices do deliver value, but I'm going to shift to a metaphor for a moment. Voting machines deliver value too. A very old voting machine, but voting machines of all kinds matter. They deliver value. But nobody claims that voting machines are making us a democracy. Democracy emanates from values and principles. Similarly, agile practices don't by themselves make us agile. Agile practices only deliver better teams. So we walk down that list of practices that I listed there. Every one of them will make us a better team, but they don't deliver great teams. Agile values and agile principles make us agile, and it's why when I'm doing training, I ask my classes to pin the Agile Manifesto up on their work wall and revisit them to ask, are we actually following the Agile values and the Agile principles? Because Agile values and Agile principles are what make us agile and what inspire great teams. So I want to move on to talking about another, it's actually another Agile value or another part of Agile culture, which is self-organization and empowering the role of managers in empowering self-organization and excellence. And I want to start by doing a chat storm. So you may or may not have done a chat storm. If you haven't, the idea of a chat storm is that I'm going to give you a question, and I want you to type your answer into chat, but not press enter or return. So thus, when I give you the signal to press enter or return, we have a storm of chat flowing up in the chat. All right. So the question is, what is self-organization? And what I'm looking for here are a word or phrase that describes what to you is most essential about self-organizing teams. What makes a team self-organizing? What's the essential quality or characteristic of a self-organizing team? So type that word or phrase into the chat. Do not press enter or return until I give you the signal. And I'll give you a minute to think about that question. Okay, as you finish your thought, hit return. Let's see what you came up with. Autonomy, trust, empowerment, clear expectations and accountability. Autonomy again, autonomous. Empowered team that has a safe environment and knows their goals. Communication, identifying and resolving issues organically. And I like all of those. So I want to share 4 characteristics I want you to think about. One is that every team member of a team is a leader. And I said this before, even our intern is a leader. When is our intern, when is every team member a leader? So I'm not talking about multiple people leading at the same time. What I'm talking about is a flow of leadership on the team that passes among every single person. Every team member steps up at the appropriate time, including the intern, who probably is learning things in college that we didn't learn in college a year or 2 years or 5 years or decades, in my case, earlier. And the key to the appropriate time is that every team member has to listen to their team members. That listening piece, that 2 ears in one mouth, maybe 9 ears in one mouth. We all have to listen to each other. And the key to stepping up is that every contribution is honored by the team. The rest of the team may say, nope, that won't work. But we honor the person who contributed that, regardless of our opinion about it. So essentially what we have is psychological safety on our team. Essentially what we have is that safe environment that Nina put into her answer in the chat. So I want to do another one of these metaphorical shifts and ask, if our self-organizing team, so those characteristics that you called out and that I just did, if our self-organizing team were not a software development organization, but we're an acting troupe, what kind of acting would we do where every team member is a leader and every team member steps up at the appropriate time and everyone listens to everyone else and every contribution is honored by the team? What kind of acting is that? Type an answer into chat. Improv. Thank you, Dave. Yes, improv. Why, Dave, you want to unmute and tell us why?
Well, I don't have a lot of experience with it, but what I know of improv is that certainly listening is the most important thing. It's also about not disagreeing. It's about expansion. And there's a certain level of autonomy because each person can play a role and can influence the outcome.
That's a wonderful description. I'm going to bring you along to all of my talks and trainings.
Okay,
So there is a rule of thumb in improv. Does anybody, it's a 2-word rule of thumb. Anybody know what that is?
Yes, and?
Yes, and yes, thank you, Dave. You know much more about improv than you think you do. Yes, and everyone, and so a few years ago for my birthday, I gave myself an improv class. It was a wonderful thing. I highly recommend it. But almost everyone who's ever taken an improv class has run into the 2 words, yes, and. Yes to whatever's happening already, and this is what I want to add to it. This is the direction I want to take it. And I have to keep listening because someone else may yes and before I think I'm done. So if our self-organizing team were not an acting troupe or a software development organization, but we're a music combo, what kind of music do we perform? Jazz, yes. Dave, you're quick on the chat. Yes, jazz. So who's the leader in jazz? Who's the leader in improv? Everyone is. Every single member of an improv team, every single member of a jazz group is a leader. And that leader passes beautifully, magically among all the members of those teams, but they don't give us manager models. So I want to shift to a manager model and go to sports coaching. So if you're not looking at the slides and you're looking at me in the little window on the screen, you're looking at somebody who had pretty much 0 sports following as a kid and as a 20-something until I moved to the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, and moved to a place where the 49ers, led by Joe Montana, were doing amazing things. And part of what I saw was not the brutality to which I had assigned football, but a sort of amoeba-like movement down the field, sort of moving around and through the other team. And it was a very team-oriented thing, but I still was only ever I actually became a football follower of the 49ers. But while I played, so I'm 6'4", I played basketball as a junior high kid and stopped playing and never watched it again until I was at 𝘀𝗵 in 1999, and I had a management coach. I was a director of engineering. I wanted to be a VP of engineering, and 𝘀𝗵 had supported that goal by providing me a management coach, and she put a book in my hands by a guy whose name I had no idea who he was. His name was Phil Jackson. And if there's anyone in this call who follows basketball, you will recognize this name. Phil Jackson at the time was the coach at ELA, yes, but at the time he was the coach of the Chicago Bulls. Phil Jackson had written this book called Sacred Hoops because Phil Jackson actually had the Chicago Bulls meditating in the locker room before they went out to play. He had come up with a way of bringing the team together as a team. He was bringing God into the locker room, but not God with a big G, Christianity, which his dad was a Christian pastor. But by this time, he was melding Christianity and Buddhism and some other things, and bringing God with a small d into teamwork. And Sacred Hoops is a pretty magical book. in which he describes inheriting the Chicago Bulls at a time when he inherited the only basketball player whose name, maybe two, maybe I knew two basketball team players' names, but the current one was years before. And this one was Michael Jordan. He inherited Michael Jordan, who was setting every record in basketball at the time. And the Chicago Bulls were losing. They were a losing team. They were not a good team. They were a losing team. And he needed to, the goal of a coach is to make a winning team. Well, to make a winning team, he had to make a winning team. And he talks about bringing that team together as a team, not Michael Jordan and other guys, but the Chicago Bulls. Then he introduced something called the triangle offense, and he talks about that. And I can't figure out how you have a triangle offense with triangles have 3 points, and there are 5 guys on the floor, as far as I can tell. But he really didn't. I still didn't follow basketball. I found it intriguing and really useful as a management model. What Phil Jackson wrote about in Sacred Hoops, but I didn't follow basketball until some years later when, I should note, yes, Phil Jackson wrote a second book that my kids gave me called 11 Rings. It turns out that when you win everything in basketball, they give you jewelry. They give you a ring. They give everybody on the team a ring, including the coach. And Phil Jackson, as a player and as a coach, had 11 rings. And that's what he titled another one of his books. And my kids gave me that one. And in that book, he said, when my team is firing, it's like a jazz group. And I thought, oh, they're like a Scrum team. Oh, yes, they're like an agile team. This is wonderful. But I still didn't follow basketball until the Golden State Warriors started winning. And Steve Kerr is the coach of the Golden State Warriors. And after the Warriors had won, I had watched them, and it was just amazing. And one of the players got interviewed after one of the games and was asked, what makes you so so generous with each other, so ungreedy with each other? And he said, Coach teaches us that. Coach Kerr teaches us that. And we were losing at one point, and Coach brought us into the huddle, and by golly, he didn't yell at us. He just said, start being a team again.
Mm-hmm.
And it occurred to me after about 3 seasons watching the Warriors that maybe Steve Kerr had played basketball. And so I looked him up on Wikipedia, and sure enough, he had played basketball for the Chicago Bulls. He had played for Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson was his mentor for coaching. And I thought, oh, this all ties together. Scrum team, Steve Kerr's coaching a Scrum team. This is amazing. So are there projects not suitable for Agile? I got asked this early when I was doing trainings 13 years ago. This came up pretty often. Doesn't come up as often anymore now that everybody claims to be Agile, but it came up pretty often then. And it caused me to scratch my head and to think about, geez, I don't know about this. And finally, it occurred to me, what if I change the question a little bit and ask, are there cultures not suitable for Agile? And
that
now
makes a lot of sense. Yes.
Now I can answer that question, because the answer to that is micromanagement. Agile calls for everyone on the team to step up, and micromanagement causes everyone to step back and stick their hands in their pockets and say, what do you want me to do next? Just tell me what to do. I'll be an order taker. Micromanagement disrupts Agile.
A quick time check. Do you still have a lot of material to go through, or?
Oh, but about 10 minutes. Are we okay with that?
I'm okay. Hopefully folks can stay back as well. Not a problem.
Okay. So I had I had 6 to 7:30 on the invite you sent out.
I know you're in a different time zone, so I apologize if there's some confusion. How is that okay if I say a quick thank you, and if people choose to leave because they scheduled time till 8 o'clock, and it looks like you're willing to stay back, and if others are willing to stay back,
Okay,
that's not a
7, yeah.
problem.
Yeah,
Is
so
that-
the invite you sent was 7 to 8:30. That was why I thought.
Oh yeah, we keep
thought we had
an
an hour
extra
now.
half an hour for questions if needed. But real quick, if I may take the screen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just going to quickly announce our event that's coming up next month. So on June 12th, we have Loud and Agile Network. We have about 2,000 plus members, 5-year-old organization. And so every month we host events January to October. And our next event, we have an amazing speaker, Bhavani Krishnan, who's going to talk about agile prioritization, the art of saying no. I'm going to drop a link in the chat. I would welcome everybody to please come back and see us next month. I did put a plugin earlier which talked about the topic, and I do want to say thank you, Ron, for joining us. And this was an amazing presentation. There's so much to learn for all of us. With that, I want to say, all of you who want to stay back, please do stay back. I know Ron is willing to stay back. I just wanted to make sure if people had strong time commitments, I just wanted to at least close officially, but we'll keep going on. The video will still be recording. With that, Ron, back to you. Thank you.
Okay. So I want to bring in that second management theorist, 𝘁𝗏 𝘁𝗏𝗃, which we've got this chart. We've got this and several other charts of 𝘁𝗏𝗃's, and this is not exactly 𝘁𝗏𝗃. This is modified slightly by us, but 𝘁𝗏𝗃 had the insight to say motivation is not just based on satisfaction. It's also negatively based on dissatisfaction. And so this chart is ordered by the blue bars. The blue bars are the causes of satisfaction. And notice that the number 1 blue bar is making a difference in the world, and then learning and growing in toys and technology, and recognition and praise and having fun. Those are things that managers have effect of. Similarly, the causes of dissatisfaction, if you put the word no in front of it or not in front of it. So the number 1 cause of dissatisfaction is lack of respect for a supervisor, followed by not having fun and not learning and growing, and company policies and administration that it's negative, and bad working conditions, and all of those are things that managers affect. And so I think it's a pretty useful thing to think about, and a pretty close alignment with software development and Agile values that 𝘁𝗏 𝘁𝗏𝗃 had as well. So we've talked about empowering self-organization and excellence, scaling Scrum, and I'm going to cover this one very quickly, but a single Scrum team is pretty easy. We've got a team there that's got a Scrum Master and a product owner, and communicates with business owners and stakeholders. It becomes problematic when, how do we scale our organization to have multiple teams? And I'm not sure that's actually the question managers ask me most, but it's one of the questions managers ask me most. I was coaching a VP of engineering earlier this week who asked me this question, and and I wrote a whole blog post on this, and you can either do a quick screenshot of the URL or grab the slides afterwards, which I will share back with all of you. Scaling to multiple teams, the easy route is splitting by components, we've got some front end people, we've got some back end people. We'll make the front end people one team, and the back end people a team, and the database people a team, and the And splitting it by like-minded, like-tooled people is an easy management model. But the problem is that our customers are looking for functionality, not components. And customer functionality, there's hardly a customer function that doesn't incorporate all of front end and back end and database and whatever else we've got for component teams, resulting in a very high level of inter-team dependencies and costly high bandwidth inter-team communication. And the solution to that is feature teams, where teams have front end and back end and database, and they have every skill set that's needed to deliver functionality to our customers. And teams own the interface, they own the functionality, they own the customer journey. And then removing impediments. So who traditionally, so those of you who've used Scrum, who traditionally removes impediments? Whose role is called out for removing impediments? The Scrum Master. Yeah, I saw manager there. Scrum Master is traditionally called out, but who do Scrum Masters escalate to? Managers. And when there's a particularly gnarly impediment, that's what Scrum Masters do, is they escalate to managers, and it's partly because managers in hierarchical organizations have more connections to solve for and remove impediments, and to escalate further if they need to. So Diana Larson, this is that earlier quote, are still needed for the job of interfacing on the team's behalf with the rest of the organization. And that's critical in removing impediments. I want to talk about very briefly, about two impediments that managers may need to focus on all by themselves without that escalation. One of them is making sure that teams have Slack. I run into managers every once in a while who are responsible for teams not having Slack. I think that's a particularly bad problem. If we look at that street scene, the street on the right has 0 Slack. We do not want teams that have 0 Slack. That's where bottlenecks lie. We want teams with some Slack so that we can be more productive. And secondly, we need managers who protect team focus. And I did this in my first director of engineering role at Berkeley Systems, discovered that all kinds of people in the organization were distracting engineers with their own little projects this is a matter of a few lines of code. You could go off and do this while you're doing your other thing. I'm sure none of you ever see those kinds of distractions. And it's a manager responsibility to protect team focus. In my case, what I said was, this is director of engineering stuff. If you want something different going on than what teams are committed to, you need to talk to me. And I told the teams not that if anyone called them out in the hallway to do something, that they needed to send them to me. My job was to protect team focus. So the traditional role of counseling and coaching and mentoring, I'm not sure this isn't actually a picture of pair programming and not counseling and coaching and mentoring, but I like the picture so much that I threw it in here. Counseling, coaching, and mentoring are traditional managerial roles. Although if you go back to that grid that I showed you very early on, I've had managers say to me, before Agile, I never had time to do counseling or coaching or mentoring. It dramatically changed, moving to Agile dramatically changed my role, because now I have time to counsel and coach and mentor. That was an interesting one, because fundamentally it is a manager role to start with. But here's Spotify on its Agile practice saying, at Spotify, managers are focused on coaching, mentorship, and solving impediments rather than telling people what to do. And then there's hiring and firing. Hiring, when our book came out, Mickey and I found ourselves in an interview where the interviewer was asking both of us, we were actually on a cable TV show of all things about managing software development. A cable TV show interviewer said, so you get 300 rules of thumb in the book. What's the most important one? It was not a question that either one of us had given any thought to, but both of us came up with always be recruiting. And the networking required to always be recruiting, the activity, there's a whole lot to that. And I'm not going to spend any time on it here, because I want to deal with firing, which is teams know. If you think about all the teams you've been on and think about, there was this team where we had a problem employee, that everybody else on the team knew that. And you expected your manager to know it, whether you told the manager or you expected them to know it by telepathy or osmosis. You wanted your manager to know about it and do something about it. It is a managerial responsibility. So rethought leadership roles for an agile world, to summarize: trust your people, empower self-organization and excellence, expect and nurture truly shared leadership, model, defend, and evangelize agile values, and bring teams back to agile values when they veer off, foster a culture of communication, encourage teamwork and collaboration, shield teams from politics and distraction, and take care of teams. Do we really need managers in an agile world? They are critical to agile transformational success. They have key roles in agile. They have key roles in creating agile culture. They are key to removing impediments. But agile demands that managers, like everyone else, be proactive and adapt to and own these roles and understand and embody these roles. So with that, so I'm going to put this up for just 30 seconds before I move to contact information, but I want to start taking questions. But if you want, or you think some manager on your team might want a discount on either the video training or the book, take a screenshot of this. While I leave
Nice.
it up. And let's go to questions.
Sure. So Ron, I'm going to be facilitating the questions. When I look through here, I might be wrong, but most of the questions are from Nawaz. Nawaz, if you want to unmute yourself and prioritize your questions, I think you have like 4 or 5 questions. If you want to prioritize and self-organize your thoughts and ask 2 questions, that would be great.
You kind of put me on the spot here. And the questions were like in a natural flow, right? When Ron was talking about certain things, so
that's okay. That's no problem. Didn't mean to put you on a spot. Sorry, but I just realized that a lot of the questions are from you, so I thought they came from you. You choose your best 2 questions and ask, and if we have more time, we can of course ask. So I'm accommodative, but I also want to know, like, as you form the questions in your head, what are the top 2 questions you want to ask?
Yeah, I think I asked maybe, I think there were a couple of ones. So the first one is a victim mentality, right? So there is a long story, okay, but the shorter version is I met a leader, right? Like, and then, so you can see from my question, I'm a coach, really. So brought into the organization and then supposed to run, right, do some transformation. And then this manager, and then me and him connected really well, right? Like Nawaz is my, right, like, oh yeah, he was my go-to person, right? So amazing personality, very good, right, chap. And yeah, and he's like, like, I would be miserable, Nawaz, if I come in the way of these transformation, right? So we want to do new ways of working. So yeah, there you go, right? But now when I get to work with this leader, right, this manager, this is what I see, the victim mentality, right? So the team, and I think it was in that context when you said happy teams makes, right, Uh, uh, so this team is kind of happy because they are in their happy zone, right? So this person think that yeah, the leadership is like right, it is done to me, right? This is the mindset, right? And now the team is aligned. So this person has a lot of values, right? Very open, transparent, maybe more than what is required for a leader to be. So the team is rallying behind this leader, right? So when I try to come and help this leader in new ways of working, I met a I met a very different person, right? So they are hiding behind their victim mentality, right? So I was just trying to ask exactly how do you deal with these type of managers, right? Like they are happy, but they are happy in their being miserable, right? They are happy. they found their happiness there, right? So just trying to understand like how do you respond to this situation? That was the first.
I think that so. I should preface this by saying, I said I've done almost 200 trainings of Scrum and Kanban and stream programming and Agile, and I start each one by asking, what do you hope to get out of, a little bit about you, but then also what do you hope to get out of an Agile training? And I will run into that person once in a while who says, oh, this really sucks. And my goal in training, I had one person who said, I think this is management's way of beating us up. That's what Agile is. And I said, well, I hope by the end of training you have a different opinion, because for each of us, whether we're a developer or whether we're a tester or whether we're a product manager or whether we're a Scrum Master or whether we're a manager, for each of us, there's value for our role. And so I think there was the thing that if you're coaching that victim mentality leader, the thing to do is to reorient that person to thinking about to the thought of, what am I going to get out of this? What's the value of this? And the value. I mean, the guy who created Scrum, I've forgotten his name right now, wrote a book on how Scrum teams are what 10x more productive or something like that, and I'm not sure I'm gonna buy that, but but Agile teams, whether we're doing Scrum or Kanban or extreme programming or fast or something else, Agile teams should be happier teams, and happier teams result in more productive, higher performance teams. And managers tend to get measured by their management, regardless of whether this is true or not. They tend to get measured based on the happiness. No, not based on the happiness. They get to get measured on the productivity and the performance. But happiness and productivity and performance are very highly aligned. And I think you want to focus on the productivity and performance aspects that Agile provides. High performance teams where people talk to each other and the dependencies aren't team to team, and there's teams come together in effective stand-ups, not status meetings, but effective stand-ups where we have each other's back and we are looking at how do we deliver what it is we said we were going to deliver. All of those things result in things that the executive team values. And when the executive team values it, management values it, because that's what they get graded on.
Great answer. Would that be okay if I add something to yours, Ron?
Absolutely.
Okay. So here's Nawaz. Here's something that I would add. I'm also an Agile coach, or I'm actually a professional coach. But I don't know if you've heard of Karpman's drama triangle. So I would encourage you to look that up. If you're not familiar with that, I just put a link in chat. So we see this in everyday life. There is an aggressor, there's a victim. So there are three parts to it. So I would love for you to, if you want to explore this further, take a look at the link I've just sent. And the opposite of that is called the empowerment triangle, where you're able to change that mentality through coaching. And Nawaz, please feel free to connect with me, and I'm happy to talk to you more about that. I don't want to hijack Ron's session here, but that might be a way for you to look through and think and understand and analyze if your manager is actually falling into the victim, or is he playing the aggressor role by not showing his cards, right? Anyway, I would let you be that judge, but I just thought that might help you.
Ooh, sounds good. So we have time for one, maybe two more questions.
Yeah, so as I scroll through, and Ramesh, thank you. Yes, it was Jeff Sutherland, who is the person who created Scrum, so thank you for that. The only person who asked a question so far in chat is Nawaz. Does anybody else have a question you want to ask? If not, we'll give one more question to Nawaz. All right, so it looks like that was Nawaz's question. All right, so on behalf of Loudoun Agile Network, Ron, we thank you for spending your time with us today and sharing, your decades and decades of experience, and it's so awesome. We've had a lot of authors, a lot of thought leaders come here. I don't recollect anybody coming with a ton of patents, so I think you're going to be the first in that category. And we are elated that you joined us today and shared so much knowledge. And I speak on behalf of all the attendees. Thank you for attending, and thank you for sharing your thoughts with us, and also for offering a discount on your book. I look forward to. I did take a screenshot, and I look forward to buying the book and supporting you. With that, thank you, everybody, and we will see you next month for our presentation on prioritization, the art of saying no. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ron, and thanks, everyone. And again, the sessions are recorded, so we will send you the recording link in a week or two, okay? Thanks. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
A
Yeah.
pleasure
Good to
getting
see
to
you.
teleport
Yeah.
into Loudoun County.
Yes, absolutely. How is the weather there in California? I'm sure.
It's about 60 degrees, and it's actually sunny right now. So it goes back and forth between fog and sun. So that keeps us cool.
Very good.
Hello, Jim.
Hey, Ron, good to see you.
Good to see you,
I
Jim.
was coached by Ron. My team was coached by Ron. So everything is just working so well. So that's all.
Perfect. You're all happy people.
That's right. That's right.
Oh,
Awesome.
yeah, that's is that an REM song?
Yeah, shiny,
Yeah.
happy people. Yes, that's
Shiny,
right.
shiny,
people.
happy people. Thank you.
Shiny.
Yeah, I like it. All right.
All
Talk
right.
to you soon, Ron.
Thank you so much. It's 8:30 here.
Thank
Need
you
to
for
pick the
having me,
girls.
Lakshmi.
But thank you so much, Ron. It's been really great. We look forward for your meetups too, right? Global enterprise global meetups. I should join the next one. When is it?
All right. It's I think our next one is in July. So we're
July.
sort of quarterly right now. And it's going to be and it's on metrics, and it's Agile metrics.
Who's
And
doing that?
That's a tough one. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
Do we know the speaker?
We do, and it's on the meetup page.
Okay, yeah. I'll check it out. Thank you. All right, take care.
Be darned if I can do it off the top of my head. All right.
Thanks.
See
All right,
you,
bye.
Lakshmi.
Yeah.
Thanks, bye.
Bye. Good night.